I'm Todd Boss. In this podcast, I help strangers discover the poetry in their most intimate stories. Anyone who feels there's a poem in their story can call me and leave a voicemail on my listener line, 808-300-0449.
Hello, Todd. Calling about, I'd like to think there's a poem in my story, and, well, name is Javier, but also James. That's part of the story. And the gist of it is I wasn't born in America. I wasn't born here in the States, but I was raised here as a child, briefly, illegally. And then after that, well, we all went back home to Mexico. Well, I mean, at least what was home for them, and probably should have been for me, but it never was.
In this very special episode of TAPIT, you'll go with me from the barrios of Mexico City.
I spent the next 30 years
to the steps of the U.S. Capitol,
just trying to find my way back
on a journey to self and citizenship.
I finally became a U.S. citizen. And I also changed my name because you get a free name change.
In this episode,
anyway,
calling from Las Vegas, Nevada,
please feel free to reach out. My number is 32.
Is Javier, or James, or
Phillip, James.
Phillip?
Either one works. Thank you, bye.
Honestly, when I called him back, I wasn't sure what to call him.
Phillip is good. Phillip is easiest.
Just Phillip.
Yeah. I've already had people are trying to say Phil. I'm like, no.
Phil.
No.
Have you ever renamed yourself? It's kind of a badass thing to do. It takes, to use the Spanish, cojones. It's a renegotiation of identity, a kind of self-authorship. What's it like to leave the old name behind?
I looked forward to it. I wanted it for many reasons. One of them was, as an immigrant, I kind of felt like, well, it's what a lot of immigrants went through in, early history of America. They came in to the United States, had their names changed voluntarily or not voluntarily. So that kind of clicked for me. And I also felt like it was easier for people. My full name it was Felipe Javier Hernando Meneses, but it was regularly butchered. It was always Javier or Javier. And Hernando Meneses was always hard to say. It was hard to write. It was hard for other people to use. So it was like, for a lot of reasons, it made sense.
But Phillip's story is bigger than a name change. It's a story of belonging, of longing to belong. It spans decades, countries, languages, and cultures.
The long story is, I grew up in the States. I was about 4 years old when my parents left Mexico, moved to the States. They first moved to Texas in Austin. My sister was born there. We lived there about 2 years, and then we moved to Las Vegas up until I was 10 years old. And in that time, Reagan in 1984 granted asylum to all illegal immigrants.
I believe in the idea of amnesty for those who have put down roots and who have lived here, even though some time back they may have entered illegally.
My parents applied under that. They got their green card. My sister was a citizen. She was born in Austin, but I didn't get permanent residency status. It was ongoing. It was in the process. Then after fifth grade, my parents had a falling out with my father's family. So we had to leave. We ended up leaving. But my issue of residency was never resolved, and we left. We moved back to Mexico. And to me, it was a huge shock because I grew up in America, right? That's how I feel. Even though that's where I was born, where my family was from, to me, it was a foreign country. It was just completely foreign, completely strange.
Where in Mexico are we?
For a year, we were in La Paz, Baja California Sur, which is like California, then the Baja Peninsula, and it was all the way down at the end, the tip. My mom called it the closest planet to the Earth because there was nothing there. And then we were there for a year, and then we moved to Mexico City. And that was just another huge shock because Mexico City is just a monster of a place. There's 30 million people, traffic. It was just overwhelming. It was scary. And the only school I could get into was an all-boys school. And it was harsh. It was very aggressive. It was like all boys, a very aggressive environment. And I was a small boy. Like, that's the other thing. I was undersized. I was picked on. I was a late bloomer. Like all the boys had like hair under their armpits, and and I did not. It was like trying to survive, trying to be quiet, trying not to be noticed. Like I felt like a stranger in a strange land. I just could not adapt to the way of life and the way of seeing the world and the culture of of Mexico.
If you've ever been forced to divide your time between families or schools or states or countries, then you know how difficult it can be to fit your divided loyalties and allegiances equally across boundaries, and how hard it is sometimes to know where you belong.
I was always very mad that I could not have citizenship, that I didn't have it. And I was mad that my sister was a citizen, that my mom and dad were permanent residents, and I didn't have it. I lost it through no fault of my own. So yeah, there was resentment and anger, like just hating Mexico. Like I hated it.
Phillip's displacement into a lonely world where he didn't feel at home led him to colonize a very different, very colorful world without boundaries where he could feel at home, the world of books.
So I did a lot of escaping through books, primarily science fiction and fantasy, in English, which are hard to get. I would take them to school, and I sat in the back, and I read these giant tomes, like underneath the desk.
The sci-fi fantasy genres are vast and contain some of the finest works of literature ever written. To say that Phillip chose these books as a form of escape is to shortchange his exploration of the big themes, not just philosophy and time and science, but themes that touched directly on his own deeply divided life, alternate universes, society and class, fate and free will.
Like it presents certain values and certain ways of seeing the world as furthering civilization and upholding certain values and being honest, being straightforward, being true. To me, like that was also America. That was also the United States. There was a sense of order in the United States, or what I perceived to be order and law and safety. Because Mexico was and is it's a third world country. There's a lot of corruption, so I never felt safe. And in the back of my mind was always, well, I want to go back. I want to come back. I want to go back to the States.
Westerns, comic books, science fiction, these became Phillip's adopted homelands, supplanting his feelings of helplessness with heroic fantasies.
At some point, I became infatuated with a series of books called The Dragon Riders of Pern. It's written by Anne McCaffrey. And it was just a series of books that I read obsessively over and over again. And I would, fantasize about the books and the setting and the people and the adventures, and to a degree where my mom was worried, and she took me to see a psychiatrist.
Phillip is such a sympathetic character. I want to be Phillip's friend throughout the telling of his story. But more than that, I want to have been his friend. I want to scroll back time so that I can have been his friend from the beginning, when he first needed one. Can I do that in a poem? Can a poem befriend someone retroactively? I guess what I'm trying to say is, can I write Phillip some comfort that feels like it was there all along?
In college, I fell in love with film and filmmaking. I was like, well, this is great. Like, I want to do this. And I tried. I tried to do it in Mexico, but there's no film industry in Mexico. Like, they make 10, 15 movies a year, and they're all financed by the government. So it's a giant mafia. I was just constantly disgusted by the corruption, the nepotism, and just the lack of these things that I wanted to do. It just didn't exist. And to me, America was like the land of opportunity, entrepreneurism, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. I was obsessed with Westerns, and I was like, yes, that's what I want. And I was always trying to escape, trying to leave. And I had multiple attempts.
Multiple attempts at leaving?
Yeah, at leaving Mexico, because it's hard. Like, the immigration system is hard, trying to move to any country. And, the US system is hard, but other countries are just as hard or harder. So I looked at how can I move to Canada? Can I move to Australia, Europe? But it was always America. It was because I was just it was like a beacon. It was what I wanted consistently. And I was obsessed over everything immigration and permanent residency and different types of visas.
You made it it was your biggest hobby, trying to figure out how to work this and get it back.
Yes, I was obsessively trying to figure out how do I get back to this place that I wanted to be.
If you think tax forms or college application materials are confusing, imagine trying to navigate immigration paperwork. My head spins just thinking about it, but where there's a will, there's a way, and Phillip found a way, or so he thought at the time. Teaching.
The public school district of Dallas, DISD, they needed bilingual school teachers. So they didn't have any, and they had a large Hispanic population. So they recruited from Latin America and Spain. I heard about the program, and it was almost too good to be true. They said that they would sponsor you for the H-1B visa because you had to do accelerated certification to be a teacher. So that took about 2 years. And after that, they would sponsor your permanent residency. And it was the only way I could find to come back to the States. And I thought it was like, I'm coming home. And they were like, because it was another culture shock. Because even though I thought I knew what America was, the United States was, I hadn't lived there. I left when I was 10. I didn't move back until I was 27. And even then, when I was living in America, I felt like I was always on the outside looking in. Again, stranger in a strange land. Like the word is foreign, like alien, legal alien. And it's appropriate. It's how I felt. I felt like an alien.
Yeah. So you're 27, you moved to Dallas and you're teaching, right?
Yes, 5th and 6th grade. And so I was like, it can't be that hard. Like it was just 5th graders. And so I had a whole idea in my mind of how it was going to go. And oh my God.
Teaching is a hard job, really hard, especially in an underfunded district where language barriers and systemic issues heighten the chances of failure.
They just like dumped us in the classroom, and it was like the battlefield because these kids were like, they were in 5th grade, but they were on a 1st grade reading level. And there were tests. It was called the TAKS test at the time, the Texas Assessment of Knowledge and Skills. And the 5th grade TAKS test was so important that that's how Texas determined how many prisons they would build in like 10 years time, because they knew like if the kids failed, like they knew that they're not going to finish high school. And so the thing was like, teach the test, because it was the most important thing. So they needed to pass the test. If they passed the test, they could go on to 6th grade. So yeah, my year 1, year 2, and year 3, like there was a lot of yelling. I did a lot of yelling. I was very angry. Like I was like whipping these kids to like read this and do this, and it was rough. It was definitely like I cried like my first year, like after school almost every day. Like I felt it was a disservice to just teach the test. Like I really wanted to leave these kids with something.
Phillip did the best he could.
And I was like, I had moved there by myself. I was alone, and I was doing it. Like if I can make it 2 years, I can get permanent residency, and then if I want to, I can stay, but if not, I can quit. And to me, it was like I can move to California, I can move to LA, I can write these films and make them that I wanted to make. But after 2 years, they said, well, like your H-1B visa is valid for up to 5 years. After that, we'll apply. I was like, I knew it was too good to be true. I was like, okay, I have to endure.
Phillip came very close to finishing the 5 years of work that would allow him to stay in the United States. But then his mother had an accident.
She fell down the stairs. She hit the back of her head. She got a subdural hematoma. It was very bad. And I left. We got on a plane that day. We got to the hospital at midnight. And the hospital was terrible. It was like, I don't know. It was like my vision of hell. I walked in thinking, I was like, Mom, I'm here. Like, and she did not recognize me. She didn't know where she was. She thought she was at home in the kitchen. And she grabbed me and she said, get me my cigarettes. And I was like, Mom, like, you're not at home, you're in the hospital. And she just grabbed me. She grabbed my arm, like dug her nails in, and like she bit my arm out of her mind, completely out of her mind. And it wasn't her. It was a crazy person. I spent the whole night with her. To me, it was like I was bringing her back to life, to sanity. And the next day she was better. And we treated like my mom died that night and was like reborn.
Does moving back to Mexico at that stage of your visa process ruin your chances of becoming?
Yeah,
it does.
Yeah,
that just must have been heartbreaking.
Yeah. I knew what it would cost. Like I knew that if I left, like I would fall out of the queue and I would have to start all over again. But I felt a lot of guilt and anger and shame because I was away. I left my family to move to Dallas to chase this dream. So like there was the sense that I sacrificed that. I left it in my mind to achieve something more, to achieve something better for myself and for my family. Like I left. I definitely left. So I felt responsible in a way.
Yeah.
That was, in my life, I think that's the lowest point. After I left Dallas, went back to Mexico, one of the things I had on my mind was I know I want to write. Like I always knew I wanted to write, be a writer. like one of the big things on my mind was like, am I good enough? I don't know. Can I do this? Can I be successful? Do I have the talent? My sister, who was living in Las Vegas, she told me, why don't you apply to UNLV? And I was like, I don't think there's like anything related to film or writing at UNLV. I'm like, it's Las Vegas, right? It doesn't make sense. She was like, no, I think there is. And I was like, okay, let me check. And I did my research and just like buried somewhere in like all the things there. They had an MFA and it was writing for dramatic media, which is like a very weird title. But it was basically screenwriting. And that program was 3 years long. And it was a full fellowship. You didn't have to pay anything and you got paid. So it was no brainer. And I got in. So that was kind of like my second attempt at moving to the States. Because like first had an H-1B visa, which you needed an employer to sponsor you. That didn't work. And this was an F1 visa, which is a student visa, which you can stay as long as you're studying, you can stay there. So yeah, it kind of just all fit. I couldn't believe it because I was like, oh, I grew up in Vegas. Here I'm back. I'm back again. That's just insane. So it was surreal. It was great. Had a lot of time to write.
Phillip earned his master's degree.
But the thing that also changed my life was it's where I met my wife. She did her bachelor's in film at UNLV. She was doing production work, and I always knew I wanted to get married. I was always that person. I was looking for love, but I was very bad at dating, and I had several failed relationships. Every time I met somebody, it was like, let's get serious, let's get married, let's live together. In my mind, I was like, why are we wasting time? You know? And with Emily, that's what happened. Because I met her and thought she was amazing, wonderful, beautiful, smart. Like she's in film, wants to do film. So do I. She's creative. I'm creative. We talked about LA, and I was like, yeah, LA is great. Like I was like, we should go. Let's go next weekend. She was like, yeah, maybe.
You're just all in.
Oh yeah, yeah. To me, it was like, yeah, you know, like I like you, you like me. Like let's do this. Like let's make it serious.
You must have scared the shit out of her.
Yeah, she wanted nothing to do with me. She was like, no. Yeah, she ghosted me for 2-3 months, and I didn't know how to react. I talked to my friend, and she's like, you have to do the thing you've never done. You have to let go. You can't pursue her. You can't chase her. She has to come to this. And I was like, I can't do that. I don't know how to do that.
Yeah. Counter to everything in your nature, right?
Yeah. I was like, if you love somebody, let them go. I'm like, that's fucking stupid. Like, why? No, like chase after them.
How did you bring her back around?
The last thing I sent her like a text, which was kind of like, hey, like, hope you're doing okay. If you want to go out later, hang out or something, yeah, just let me know. Like, I'll be here. And it was so hard. It was like I checked my phone, email, to everything, like every day. And then, yeah, out of the blue, just got a text from Emily. Like, hey, sorry, I've been like, out of the loop or something. But, we should like go out next week. And I was like, yes. But it was also like, okay, but don't fuck this up. And yeah, we had a second first date, and she just accepted me. And that was it.
After graduating, Phillip was once more in limbo. He no longer qualified for the student visa, and time was running out.
Immigration gives you 1 year of, it's called OPT, optional practical training. So you can work for that year after, but you can only work in the area. It's like, yeah, I got a degree in screenwriting, but I can't go and find a job as a screenwriter because it's hard. It's difficult. It doesn't exist. You have to, a lot of time and effort, etc. And it was coming up to the end of the year. And I knew Emily and I, we talked about getting married. We knew it's a thing we wanted, but like I wanted to propose, but I also felt like I couldn't because I didn't have like a steady job, or I didn't have the job, and I couldn't provide, and I couldn't do a lot of things. So I had a lot of back and forth, a lot of doubts, and, I talked to friends and mentors, and they said like, well, you just have to do it. And that's when I talked to my father-in-law, asked for her hand, and he was very open, very caring, very giving. Like he cried, I cried. That's when he asked me about, if I would take his last name, which is Schroeder, because he had 4 daughters. So, tradition wise, if he wanted to have a son, he didn't have one. So his last name will also pass if you go by traditional structures. And my father had passed away, and I thought it was wonderful. So I was, yeah, of course. So then there was Felipe, Javier, and then Schroeder. But that was in November, proposed. And then the civil wedding was in January, because if we didn't get married before that, I'd have to go back to Mexico and wait. And then it was another type of visa. It's called a K-1 visa, which is a fiance visa. And then I was like, no, I'm not sending you back. You're staying. But I proposed in November. We got married in January. And then we had the wedding with everybody else in March.
And at that point, because you were married to an American, your immigration woes are over, right?
You'd think so. There was still a long process. Like once you get married, you get a conditional residency. After that, you get permanent residency. And normally you have to wait 5 years as a permanent resident to get citizenship. But if you get married, it goes down to 3. So you can do it in 3 years, which is what I did. Yeah, and here I have, that's the certificate of naturalization. So after this, like you get this, you sign it, and you're a citizen. It's kind of bureaucratic. Being a citizen, it's an option. Like you have to take an oath. Like you have to go through the ceremony. You have to, like it's a whole nother step. And that was, it was very emotional. It was at the courthouse, downtown Las Vegas. There was like 40 people from all over, Cuba, Israel, Ukraine, Russia, Philippines. It was a diverse group. Emily went, of course, and my mom and my sister also went. The cool part was that right at the beginning, they said, well, you know where it says speaker? And then they said, well, we need the speaker is going to be one of you. So like, who volunteers? Who wants to talk? No. And I raised my hand. I was like, I'll do it.
Oh, you're kidding. Wow. Why? What inspired you to raise your hand like that?
It felt right. It felt appropriate. It was this thing that I've been chasing for like 30 years. So I was like, I have to do it. But at the same time, I didn't have a speech prepared at all. And then when it was my turn to speak, I got up, and then I think the first words I said, my fellow citizens, which like felt very good. I told myself I wouldn't cry, but I did. Like I broke down. That was a day like, that everything would change or should change. And the judge made a speech too. And he said how, we were here because we chose to be here, because we chose to live here. We chose to leave. Everybody was there. We chose to leave our homes, our country, our place, wherever we were from. And then the last thing the judge said was, 2 more words, and said, welcome home. And once he said that, I was like, oh my God, so true.
Tell me how the size of that day compared to, say, the size of your wedding day or the size of your graduation from, the MFA program or other sort of, passages in life.
The biggest thing was my wedding day. Like it doesn't compare. Well, yeah, when I say like Emily changed my life, like it wasn't just getting married and getting citizenship. I mean, that was nice. But if I'd met her anywhere else, or if, I still would be in love and would have gotten married, whether it was in Mexico or anywhere else, like it's just her and who she is. And
yeah. How long you been married now?
5 years, 5.5 years.
Children on the horizon? Oh, I put you on the spot.
Well, that's part of the whole process and the journey, because we moved to LA, and to me it was like, this is the dream. This is what I always wanted. I was living in West Hollywood. It was just so close. Like the dream was so close. I had a couple of interviews and job opportunities, and we were both focused on entertainment, Hollywood, filmmaking as a career. And we were both kind of consumed by that pursuit, by the chase, by trying to make it. I was writing, she was producing. And then the pandemic hit, because everything got canceled, like shows, movies, productions, everything was, it was madness. And I was the one who broke. It was about a year in, and I just couldn't take it anymore.
It seems to me the pandemic's holding pattern, that terrible holding pattern in your career and in where you lived, it must have triggered all these other things for you about the waiting that you've done over time to get back to the States, and the citizenship and the visa problems and all of this.
Yeah, I reached another bottom. I felt like Sisyphus, felt like I was pushing this rock, this stone up the incline, and that incline, that stone was trying to be successful, trying to have a career in writing, screenwriting. And I would get up and it would come back down. It would get up, and I kind of felt how it started to get to me, how hard it was, how kind of impossible it was to succeed. I had an idea. So I was like, I had an MFA. I did my time. I've been And I've been waiting to do this my whole life. I've been, wanting to write and succeed. And here I am. Why haven't I done it? Why hasn't it happened? Like, I'm talented. I have talent, but nobody cares. That was just the thing. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, nobody owes you anything just because you want to do something, want to be creative, want to be an artist. Like, it doesn't mean that you should have it or that you should get it. And that was shocking. It was kind of shattering. There was no structure. There was no path. I started getting angry and mad at the reality of it, which was everybody I worked with was 22, 23, right? Recent graduate. I was older. I was like, I'm going to be 40 soon. And I do want to have kids. I do want to have this with Emily. So to me, I felt bad that I'd gotten there late. I arrived in LA too late. I had this crushing weight of expectation, of ambition, and I couldn't see the light. I could not find the way through it. And I've always prided myself on being a person that can solve problems, that can find the way, that has a plan for what's going to happen a year, 5 years, 10 years from now. And I didn't have it. And I gave up. I was like, I can't do this, Emily. I can't take it. And then, we packed it all up, left LA, moved back to Vegas. And fortunately, Emily's parents, they have a large house. There was space here for us to live, which is where we're living right now with my in-laws. In Las Vegas, in the basement of their house. And when I say that to people are horrified. They're like, oh my God, you're in the basement? I'm like, well, it's the basement it's a 10,000 square foot house, right? So I was like, don't feel sorry for me. We're okay. We're more than okay.
Phillip's career has since taken another turn. This time, he's applying to law school.
The pressure of you need to write something, to sell it so that you can do this as a living, it was crushing. It was too much. I couldn't do it. And if I want to have kids, if I want to have financial security, I can't do it. And what's the closest thing that I could do? I was like, well, I could be a lawyer. I could study law. It's hard, but I'm smart. I can figure things out. And part of the thing I'm starting to like about the law, it's there's order. Like, I'm always a fan of order. Like, that's one of the things I hated about Mexico. It was chaotic. There was no order. There was no structure. So I like that. And then on another side, it's doing good work. Work that's important. That's part of what I wanted to do with being a creative writer. I wanted to make a difference in the world. And the best way I thought to make a difference was, writing a book or making a movie, affecting people, touching people. And now, I guess now there's a different canvas. That's a good word. Yeah, I feel like there's a course now. There's like a chart for my life, at least the next 4 years. But even after that, there's stability, there's security, which I didn't have before. Feels very good right now.
Chasing things, waiting for things, looking for love, applications, the open door, the one shot, visas, citizenship, always in a holding pattern, always coming close, caught between languages and countries, reality and fantasy, family and ambition. When it comes time to write Phillip's poem for him, my impulse is to over-deliver. Can you blame me? I want to give him an experience that rises to meet the challenges he himself has overcome. I want Phillip's poem to be as bold and tenacious and courageous as he has been. I want a poem of celebration as big as a country. I sit down to write one day when a book on my shelves catches my eye, Richard Blanco's How to Love a Country. Blanco, a Cuban-American, is most famous for delivering his poem One Today at President Barack Obama's first inauguration on the steps of the U.S. Capitol in 2009. I email Richard, and to my surprise, he agrees to listen to my interviews with Phillip and write him a poem. I'm amazed that this poet, who once read a poem of citizenship for millions of Americans, has agreed to write another for just one. It's been a few months since my first conversation with Phillip, and yes, he's since been accepted to law school.
Long story short, I got accepted at Santa Clara.
Wow.
It's crazy.
That's amazing.
I know.
So let's see. How to begin? First of all, what's the anticipation like around this? Have you been thinking about it? Is there a poem in your imagination that you've been kind of thinking that you might expect, or do you have any expectations at all?
I a lot of time I lack appreciation of everything that's happened. So I forget about it, or I don't think about it, because it's difficult to explain to people everything that I've done and what I've been through. I know it's hard to get across like how hard it's been, or the fact that it's been hard and how long it's been, because it's not easy. It's just a complicated subject. So I'm eager to see an external point of view, interpretation. I need somebody else's interpretation. So that's my expectation. Yeah.
I've been thinking a lot about that too, and my impulse has also been to get another perspective. So instead of writing your poem myself, Philip, I've engaged another poet to do it.
Okay.
And he is waiting in the wings right now, and I want to introduce you to him. And I'm excited to do that because he's had a chance to listen to all 3 hours of our interview.
Okay.
And he has already written the poem that he plans to deliver to you today.
Okay.
I want to tell you a little bit about him first. His name is Richard Blanco. Do you know that name?
No.
He likes to say that it's a joke with him. He likes to say he was made in Cuba, assembled in Spain, and imported to the USA. His mom was 7 months pregnant when she was exiled from Cuba to Spain, where Richard was born.
Okay.
And then 2 months after he was born, the family immigrated to America. He was only a few weeks old.
Wow.
At that time, and he already belonged to 3 countries and also belonged to none of them because he had citizenship in none.
Wow.
The family settled in Miami, and that's where he was raised. And he, like you, he had a really strong creative streak, but his parents talked him into studying engineering so that he could be more secure. And so that's what he did. He started work as a civil engineer in Miami. But in his 20s, he was so eager to tell his story that he went back to school and studied with poet Campbell McGrath and earned a Master of Fine Arts in Creative Writing in 1997. And so after that time, he worked as an engineer by day and a poet by night. And 3 poetry collections later, after having won prize after prize for his writing, President Barack Obama selected him to serve as the 5th presidential inaugural poet in U.S. history.
Wow.
Following in the footsteps of Robert Frost and Maya Angelou. He was the youngest, first Latino, first immigrant, and first gay person to serve such a role. And he read a poem called One Today, which was an original poem that he wrote for that occasion. And it was, he delivered at Obama's inauguration ceremony. Since then, he has published a memoir, a fine press photo book, a children's book, and another poetry collection called How to Love a Country. And I could list all the publications and TV programs he's appeared on, but it's truly exhaustive. From the BBC to Telemundo and CNN. His poems ask universal questions that we all ask ourselves on our own journeys. Where am I from? Where do I belong? Who am I in this world? I thought he would be the perfect poet to write your poem for you, Philip. Meet Richard Blanco. There you are.
And we're all here.
Awesome. So let's see. Philip, I'm going to send you a PDF of the poem so that you have it and then have a custom reading here today. Yeah. So, Philip, let me know when you have the PDF there.
Let me check.
And then I'll let you follow along as Richard reads it.
There it is.
Got it?
Yep.
Take it away, Richard.
Rusty, because the poem has to be read many times before it starts living in your body. But your name, my name.
Your name,
Phillip James.
My name. For Phillip James, formerly Felipe Javier Hernando Meneses, For myself, Ricardo de Jesus Blanco Valdez, also known as Richard White. Your name, like my name, infused with the sing-song of Spanish from our mother countries that never quite spoke to us in the vernacular of our souls. Not your Mexican cacti or crime, not mariachis or immigrants, not tequila or La Virgen de la Guadalupe. Forgive the cliches. Not my Cuban palm trees or poverty, not mambo or brothels, not rum or La Virgen de la Caridad. Forgive my own cliches. Perhaps cliches are all we know, all we need or want to know of who we are or are not. Your name, like my name, inked on a U.S. immigration card. Let's imagine we had the same exact number, 531135, a palindrome, an omen, destined to be sojourners all our lives, back and forth, north and south, east and west, through countries and cities mapped out by the compasses of our minds, needling home. Have we found it in our imagination, or in the dirt beneath our feet? Or are we still looking for it in the clouds that pause in our eyes? Your name, like my name, out of tune in English, the flat, unrolled R's of my Ricardo that I'd eventually translate into Richard, a new me without a silent H. The F of Felipe that you traded for the PH of Phillip. Both of us wanting to love and be loved in the sounds of English we loved. We, the names of Anglo-Saxon kings we donned. We, our blood's royal belonging to what we felt we belonged to, or not. Your name, like my name, the names in which we heard ourselves come to life. Me in the meter of poets who allowed me to sing myself anew as their music. You in the language of sci-fi novels that spoke another world you needed to believe in. And the names we both heard in the gunshots of movie westerns we loved. Cowboys who didn't doubt their purpose, always oneself belonging to one landscape, no questions, unlike us. Why didn't we rename ourselves Wayne, Clint, or Cooper? Your name, like my name, in the names of the students we called out when taking attendance, Juan, Anita, Alberto, whose lost eyes we've looked into as deeply as our own, Christina, Carlos, Carmen, how we taught them to listen to the light of their inner voices, how we gave them our breaths to shout out, "We are here," as alive and necessary as we learned to be, by the grace of the words that saved us too. Isn't that what we have in the end? Words. Your name, like my name, the names we found in love, you and your Emily, me and my Mark, names that spelled out destiny, surprise, and surrender for us. Letters that dispelled our names from our Jungian selves, the gestures, the bon vivants, the heedless lovers we thought we'd be forever. Their names that freed us to be one with them, two clouds, two waves, two rays of lightning melded together. Philomene, my Richard, aren't those our true names too? Your name, like my name, Ricardo, James, Felipe, White, Richard, Meneses, Philip de Jesus. All the names we've let go of, all the ones we've taken, names as teachers and husbands, caretakers and changemakers, chameleons and questers, and all the names we have yet to call ourselves by, everywhere we have yet to claim as our own or not, real or imagined. Your name, mine, always aching to spell HOME for ourselves.
The poem is done, but Phillip can't speak. He's overcome. Blanco is a bit taken aback. We wait. It's a lot for Phillip to take in, the poem, the poet, this elevated moment.
Well, I guess I say it isn't a poem till someone cries. Wow, that's a beautiful response. I mean, thank goodness, because I'm like, it is a little intimidating if you don't know.
For a while, it seems Phillip isn't going to be able to pull himself together, and who could blame him? This poem stands at the end of a long, long road.
Yeah, well, Phillip, you can see why I chose Richard for you.
Minutes go by as Phillip works the palms of his hands over his face, trying to recover himself. Blanco attempts to talk through this awkward pause, taking the opportunity to explain some of the decisions he's made in the poem. I just sit back and let the magic of this encounter weave itself over us. This, I think to myself, this is the power of poetry to heal, to inspire, to connect. Later, I get a text from Phillip. Thank you, Todd. That was incredible. I can't say I don't have words. I have too many of them. The sheer length of Blanco's extraordinary poem precludes me from rereading it here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You can listen to it again and read along with it
for your life and your story
on our website, poeminthat.com, where you can also find bonus content, including a photo of Phillip and his reaction to the poem.
There are so many things that resonate, and part of it is...
There's a poem in that was written and produced by me, Todd Boss.
I always felt like...
with support from associate producer Hila Plitman.
Like this journey, this whole thing.
And story editor Bronwyn Clark.
Just like I felt alone, and no one else did it.
Audio support from Ben O'Brien, Noah Hubble, and Emily Hubble.
That's good to know somebody else understands it.
Special thanks for their administrative support goes to Chloe Fiorato Toomey and Mallory Capri Henson. Our theme music was written by Ash Whitaker.
Wanted to get it right.
Special music for this episode was written by Pedro Osuna.
Like, where are those points of connection, the moments of, oh my God, and like, yes, and like, I get that.
Big thanks to guest poet Richard Blanco, whose newest collection from Beacon Press, Homeland of My Body, was published in October of 2023.
Because if I have to feel the poem again, like I have to feel you,
We here at TAPIT would like to dedicate this episode to Phillip's mom,
Olivia de Lourdes Meneses Moguel,
and to parents everywhere who read to their children.
You receive revelation by visiting oracles, and I think that's what poetry is and what poets are.
If you liked this episode, you'll love TAPIT Episode 4, Bonnie Cycles On, in which I recruit another surprise guest poet to help a woman get back on her bike after an accident.
Thank you for going above and beyond. Like, this wasn't just a poem. It was poetic. Yeah.
You're a poet yourself, Phillip.
Yeah, I think so.
I'm Todd Boss, reminding you that there's a poem in everything, if you're paying attention.